Hey guys, we're going to take a look at the 2019 NFL Cheat Sheet Week 1. So right now there's two tabs that come up here. We have our Quick Stack tab, which is similar to what we have in baseball, and then we have our main. And last year, if you remember, once we got a couple weeks in, we had 4 or 5 tabs on that sheet breaking down all kinds of stuff, and we'll get there again. And I want to point out that this sheet is pulling all of 2018 stats from last year because it was either that or leave it completely blank. So just take it with a grain of salt when you see one of the rankings. So over here we've got our player names, we have our position that you can sort by, so you can drop down here and take just running backs, flip through them. We have the team, the opponent, and one thing new I added in here was the Vegas spread and total. Since sports betting is becoming legal in several states, I brought it in here, so you've got your open line, your current line, and your total line. And the good thing about this is, here, let me show you. Every time you open it, it's going to refresh the Vegas odds. So once you close it, save it to your desktop, open it up, you see this is blank. And down here in the bottom, you see running background query. And then boom, it pulls it in. So if you open this up Sunday at 11 o'clock, you're going to get all of the latest lines, totals, see where they're at. Like you can see right here, the Chargers went from -3 to -6.5, so a lot of money going in on the Chargers. And then over here, I'm doing the same thing we did in baseball. I'm putting DraftKings and FanDuel together. So your DraftKings projections are over here, your FanDuel projections are over here, and then right in the middle, I'm going to do the fantasy points per game. Of course, there's none because this is week 1, so next week this will start getting filled in, and I'm going to do fantasy points per game for the season, and then the last 3 games. So if someone pops off in week 4, so week 4, 5, and 6, they, let's say, take over a starting job, then you can find them in this column. And then over here, instead of doing the color coding up and down, I did just brackets for the different ones. So the green you can see are the super cheap people. You can see Brissett here at 4,400, and then it kind of goes up from there. I may add another one or change them in the future. And then we've got our projection, and then we got the value. Now the value is color coded, but if you get over 3x, you get this purple and yellow one that's going to pop up. And then if you get between, I think, 2.8 and 3, you get kind of this yellow and blue. So something for them to stand out a little bit. And the same thing over here on FanDuel, but at a little lower number since their projections and salaries are a little bit different. And then scrolling over here, we've got the DVP per position. So this is going to be the fantasy points allowed to this player specific position, and then how it ranks. So if they're giving up, say, 20 points to the tight end, you can look over here at rank and see, is that the worst team against tight end, the best team against tight end, and you can get a good look. We'll start pulling this in next week, but I'd give it about 3 weeks before we get an indication of what it is, just because if someone faces Travis Kelce week 1, they're going to be skewed, etc., etc. A new column I brought in here is plays per game. So this is for all of last year, and this will update. So this is how many plays per game. So if you bet a lot of Vegas totals and you're worried about pace numbers, this is kind of like our NBA pace where we did possessions per game. So this is just plays per game. So I wanted to put that in there, just keep an eye on it. And then these stats here were in there last week. So we've got our offensive rankings. So offensive rush and offensive passing, how they ranked all of last year. And then season yardage totals, this is from last year, but again, week 2 we'll start updating it for this year. And so you can see this is how many yards per game they averaged rushing and how many passing yards per game they averaged, and this is their total yards per game. So you could come in here and sort this high to low, low to high. If you're looking for running back, you can come over here and just choose running backs, and then go over here and say, okay, well, who's rushing for the most yards per game, and pick someone up there. And then over here we got, these are the DVOA numbers, so these are position specific. So I went ahead and did rush defense, pass defense as a whole, and ranked those. And then you have the wide receiver 1, 2, tight end, and running back. So the running back, this is them catching a ball out of the backfield. So screen passes, pass catching running backs that are running routes. This is how well we cover them. So you could look right here and say, okay, this is 30th, so they were almost dead last against pass catching running backs. So let's see which team that was. Okay, so that was Miami. So Mark Ingram probably isn't going to catch a lot of balls, but the rookie they have in there, I can't think of what his name is. He's going to catch some balls, so maybe he's a sneaky play. And then, if you got a wide receiver one, like I can just look at these two columns and say, okay, the wide receiver one here is probably going to be a little bit better over the wide receiver two. And then you go down here and you've got, okay, they're seventh against the wide receiver one, but bottom 6 or 8 versus the wide receiver two. So maybe your sneaky pivot is you go down here and you stack the quarterback with the wide receiver two. Anyways, I'll have more videos of this as we're going along, but this gives you a lot of opportunities to search little things and find plays and find pivots, and I'll continue to add to this as time goes on, but the fantasy points per game and the DVP will be up next week. And one of the things I'm adding is a quick stack tab. So on our baseball sheet, one of the things I love is the quick stack tab that has everything on there. And so what I'm doing, and you can see up here, so this first game I don't have the showdown numbers in for Green Bay, Chicago, so this is all going to update. So you can use this quick stack tab for building lineups, you can use it for sports betting, either one. So this game is going to pull in even if there's no projections on there, so I'm going to start showing you at week 2. So this is what one team is going to look like. So we've got Atlanta, Minnesota. The Vegas projected score based on a -4 spread is 26-22. You can see the totals moved from 47.5 to 48, so just a half a point. And people have put a little money on Atlanta going from 4.5 down to 4, so you can quickly see the change of the current line. This custom model, as the season gets going, we'll fill that in with our projected score, kind of what we think, and then we're also going to track it this year and see how well it does. And then over here you've got your public money. So this is the public money on the side, so money line. This is the public money on the spread, and this is the public money on the total. So you can see the totals went from 47.5 to 48, and 78% of the money is on the over. Right now there's no color code like there is in baseball, but I'm going to add it to where if something's over, say 90%, then it highlights a little green or green and yellow, something to stand out, and if it's less than 10%, it turns red, so you can kind of get an idea. So looking at this, public is on the over and on Atlanta +4. The lines move that way, and that's where public money is sitting right now. And then over here, we have all of our offensive rankings, and I left this open to where I could add more. The Google sheet that I was sharing for basketball, I had so much data in there, and I didn't want to flood it, but I wanted to put some information in here. So over here, this is going to be the tops, all your offensive numbers, and then this red is all your defensive numbers. So here we have points per game, so this is offensive and defensive points per game allowed, and you've got the season, how they rank on the home and road, and then since the top team's always the road, bottom's the home, I put a light green there so it's easy to look at. Same thing with the defense, and then you've got offensive yards per game, defensive yards per game, how they did for the season, how they rank, home, road, and again the little light green boxes so you can see, okay, top team road, this team's home. And then yards specific, we have yards per game rushing and how they rank, yards per game passing, how they ranked, and then yards allowed rushing and yards allowed passing. So just looking at this will give you a good snapshot. And again, this is last year's numbers, so I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time on it in week 1. And then over here I added this in. This was kind of fun, plays per game and then first downs per game. So I'm going to kind of watch that and see if there's anything that jumps out. So this is kind of our stats section. And then over here we've got the game number, just so when I'm scrolling up and down I can find which one, what time it is, so you don't have to look and say, okay, is this a night game, a Monday night game, what slate's it on. We have the two teams and the lineup projections here and here. So this right here is going to be the first team, Atlanta, and this is going to be the second team, Minnesota. So I'm going to show you what we have for this right now. So here we've got the positions. So QB, of course, there's one. I pull in 3 running backs, the 4 highest projected wide receivers, and then I put in 2 tight ends just because sometimes there's a second guy and we don't really know who it is. And then we've got their DK salary, their projection, the value, and again, this is zeroed out. This is fantasy points per game, so this is going to get filled in after week 1 once we get some stats behind them. So you can kind of look here and say, okay, if you want to stack the QB and the running back, here's where we're at. If you want to do wide receiver 1 Or if you want to pivot and say, oh, okay, I want the QB and the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, how much money am I looking at? Or maybe you want to go the tight end, or maybe you want to get crazy and go the second tight end, dirt cheap as a punt. Whatever you want to do is fine. And then down here, I'll continually update this. So this is our kind of our stacks cost. So if you want to do QB wide receiver 1, QB wide receiver 2, QB tight end, or QB running back, it has the quick cost of those. And then it's got the rough value based off their projection. Now that projection could change. You could add a new one, but that kind of gives you an idea. So if you're going right off of projections, you can glance here and say, okay, the QB tight end, so Matt Ryan and Hooper is going to get me about 1.5, so I'm going to go with that. Then also you got your fantasy points per game value. So if once we get 2 or 3 weeks in and you can see what they're scoring per game, we're going to break that down and have it over in this column, so hopefully that will put in some sneaky stacks. And then over here, this is just a quick look at the defensive numbers that are over here. So if you don't want to come back and say, okay, Kyler Murray, what's Detroit do? Okay, let me scroll all the way over here. And then you're looking at all these, how they do versus the position and offense and defense. I hate scrolling back and forth, so I wanted a neat little box right here that fills everything out. So I can look up top and say, okay, Atlanta's playing Minnesota. How is Minnesota's rush defense and pass defense? Okay, the 11th and 5th last year. That's pretty good. We knew that. And then your DVOA specific numbers. Wide receiver 1, they were 3rd. Wide receiver 2, they were 6th. Other wide receivers, so this is either your wide receiver 3 or your slot guy, they were 9th. They were 30th against tight ends and 27th against running backs out of the backfield. So, maybe if you're going to do this stack, you say, okay, if they didn't make a lot of changes and we think this defense is going to be similar to what it was last year, then the 2 spots we want to target are tight end, where they rank 30th in coverage. So you could do Matt Ryan and Freeman, or you could put Ito Smith in there as a pivot, but going from 4K to 5,300, I'd probably just go ahead and do Devontae Freeman and plan on him catching 4 to 5 balls. Or you could go tight end and come down here and put in Hooper at $3,200. And again, projections, no matter where you go, they are averages. So you're not going to put in projections in an optimizer and win a GPP. I mean, have you ever seen a QB throw 2.5 touchdowns? I like to go in and manually change him and say, okay, I'm going to give him 3 touchdowns instead of the 2.5, or, he's got a good defense, I'm going to take him down to 2 instead of 2.5, and then run that through an optimizer and kind of see what it spits out and what I'm looking at as far as stacks. And we'll get into that as the season goes on and put some together. But this is a quick way. Again, I'm going to find a way to highlight this if it's top 5, bottom 5. So like right now, these 2 would turn green. And then the same thing over here. You can see Kirk, Dalvin, Madison, Thielen, Diggs. And then you got BB and Treadwell, Rudolph, etc., etc. And then the defense for Atlanta last year wasn't really good. So 30th rushing, 29th passing, terrible versus wide receiver 1. So you could go Thielen, Diggs, whoever you think the actual wide receiver 1 is. I think it's more of a 1A, 1B. Other wide receivers, 27th. Okay, put any one of these guys in, although Thielen and Diggs take most of the passing down work. Tight end, 15. I'm probably going to pass that. That's kind of middle of the road. But running back, 28th. Okay, I'm going to put in some Dalvin Cook. Maybe you pivot off to Madison and get a vulture TD and 3 catches for 30 yards, and he would give you good value at $3,800. Anyways, this is the quick stack tab that I'm going to run with to start the season for week 1. If you see anything that you like, that you don't like, let me know. And if you followed us in baseball, we made several changes. We added things, and it got really good. So the way the baseball sheet is right now, I really like the quick stack tab. There's a lot of information in it, and I'm happy to, if you have something that you want in here, let me know where I can go to get it. So a lot of people say, hey, put in weather. Well, there's not an easy place to go in and have a Excel sheet scrape weather consistently. I could put in there like a percentage of rain, but that doesn't really do anything. So it's got to provide good information, and it's got to be available. A lot of people for the college football sheet, they were like, okay, add snaps per target and this and that. Okay, that's good, but where do you get it? So the reason I don't have a college football sheet yet is it's really hard to get all of that data because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of college players, and it's just hard to put all that together. So I'm working on it. Give me some time. We'll get there. But again, we can use this for sports betting, daily fantasy, and you can kind of go down here. So I'm hoping to get our custom model, our fantasy points per game. We might add another row of these stats when I find some that I like. And yeah, hopefully this will just kind of give you an idea. And these receivers are broken down. I consider them 1, 2, 3, 4 based on how they're projected as far as points. So when I sort it by points, that's how they're going to fall in. So you can kind of look down here, maybe find some cheap pivots of people you think, like here, AJ Brown. I have no idea who that is. I'm not even going to lie to you. $3,500. He's projected to go almost 2x. So, 7 points isn't too much to come up with. So maybe that's someone you pivot off of. Who knows? But anyways, this is how the sheet's going to start to look. I'm going to go ahead and get it posted. I don't know if I'll have anything for the showdown slate on Thursday night, especially because we don't have a lot of data yet, but it's something that I am working on to hopefully have in the future with the sheet so it's all in one place. Anyways, this is my quick breakdown that's lasting forever, so we'll talk to you soon.